What's going on, everyone? So, I was running some errands yesterday afternoon, just driving around town trying to get some stuff done before the weekend, and I had First Take playing through my car speakers via Bluetooth. I wasn't really focused on it at first because I was navigating traffic and trying to find parking, but then I pulled into a spot and was about to turn off the car when I heard Stephen A. Smith say something that made me freeze. He was talking about Steve Kerr calling the Warriors a fading dynasty, and how that quote had gone viral. I figured they'd just discuss whether Kerr was right or wrong and move on to the next topic. But then, the conversation took this completely unexpected direction, where they started debating what the Warriors need to do to get one more championship with Steph Curry and Michael Porter Jr. His name came up in a way that actually caught me completely off guard. I ended up sitting in my parked car for another 20 minutes, just listening to the panel break down this whole situation. Let me walk you through everything that went down on the show, because the way they connected Kerr's comments to the Warriors' championship window to potential roster moves was actually one of the most insightful sports discussions I've heard in a while. So they opened the segment with Courtney Cronin talking about how this quote from Steve Kerr was exactly the spark the Golden State Warriors needed. Even though it seemed like a negative thing on the surface, Courtney was saying that despite the Warriors being on a 3-game winning streak and playing some good basketball lately, there's still sort of a melancholic vibe surrounding the team right now. She wanted to specifically talk about this Kerr quote and why she actually thinks it could be a good thing for the team. Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we dive in, I need 1 second of your time. That like button right there? Hitting it now makes a massive difference in reaching more fans with this content. I know you're ready for the breakdown, but real quick, just smash that like button. It's the single most powerful way to support this channel and help the algorithm push this to thousands more people. Every like matters, so do me that favor right now. Monica McNutt jumped right in with the context, explaining how Steve Kerr has never shied away from speaking his mind to the media. And this quote that went viral was no exception. Monica read it out loud. "We are no longer the 2017 Warriors dominating the league. We are a fading dynasty." Everyone knows that, right? We know that. And she was asking the panel to consider what that does to players' mentality, especially guys like Draymond Green and Steph Curry, who were part of those dynasty years and are still clinging to those memories of domination, chip after chip, even in 2022 finding a way to win with a roster that probably wasn't built well enough, but got it done anyway. Ryan Clark had a really interesting take on this. He was saying that 10 years of glory for that franchise and those fans was an incredible run, but you have to wonder whether Kerr calling them a fading dynasty was actually strategic. RC's argument was that if you're a player on that team and you hear your coach say something like that, doesn't it rub you the wrong way a little bit? And while that could be detrimental in some contexts, RC thinks for the guys on this team, maybe even Steph and Draymond who've been there for the whole ride, they're probably thinking, man, it's go time. I want to be that team again. I want to be that franchise we were for so many years. Let's find a way to put this thing together. Kendrick Perkins agreed enthusiastically, adding that for Mike Dunleavy Jr., the general manager, he doesn't want to have his coach saying they're a fading dynasty. He wants to move things in the right direction, and that means being aggressive at the trade deadline. Perk was emphatic. It's big time. It's that time of year where things have to fall into place or it's not going to happen. And that's when the conversation started shifting toward what specific moves the Warriors could make. Stephen A. brought up the question that everyone's been asking: is Draymond Green coming off the bench moving forward? Is that an option for the Warriors? He mentioned how Draymond has been low-key silencing the haters lately, playing excellent basketball with a really good stretch over his last 5 games. And then Andrew Wiggins returned on Christmas Day and looked excellent too. Stephen A. wanted to break down the Christmas stat and talk about whether roster changes are actually necessary or if they just need to stick with what's working. But Monica jumped back in with some perspective about the quote itself. She explained that this fading dynasty comment actually came from a post-game press conference when Kerr was talking about the Draymond Green situation and essentially saying he really wants this team to find a way to get one more championship and he wants it to happen with Draymond on the roster. Kerr was basically saying, "We don't know when exactly it's going to end, but if all things fall into place, we think we have a shot. We're trying to get one more." RC made this observation about how it's an interesting dynamic, because if you're not Steph Curry or Draymond Green, maybe you're a younger player who wasn't here for all those glory days, you're hearing, "We're trying to get one more," and wondering, does that mean Steph only cares about the next couple of years? And then, is he gone? How does that make the younger guys feel about their long-term future with the organization? But Courtney countered that at the end of the day, there's a clear belief from the team and around the league that the Warriors still have a chance to get it done again. She quoted what Jimmy Butler said about the team. "We're streaking, baby. We're guarding at a high level, making shots. We're on the same page. We just got to keep being together." Butler acknowledged it's not going to be all good. You're not going to win every single game, but the key is consistency. And this is where the Michael Porter Jr. discussion started to emerge, though they hadn't mentioned his name explicitly yet. Perk was talking about how even the Oklahoma City Thunder, who've been fantastic this year, struggle with their kryptonite, the Spurs. And guess what? The Spurs have been beaten twice this year by the Warriors. The Warriors also beat the Nuggets, beat the Lakers, beat some very good teams, but have also struggled against lower-tier opponents. The point Perk was making is that the Warriors have the talent to compete with anyone, but they need more consistency and depth to be a legitimate championship contender. Stephen A. brought up quotes from Channing Frye, the former NBA player, who said he thinks Steph Curry gives you a better chance to win a championship than Giannis Antetokounmpo does. But then Channing posed the question, what if we had both of them on the same team? Stephen A. was using this to make a broader point about how the belief that Steph can win another championship despite being 37 years old is still very high around the league. And here's where things got really interesting. Monica started talking about how the Warriors need to add pieces, not just hope their current roster figures it out. She mentioned potential trade target, and that's when Michael Porter Jr.'s name came up for the first time. She was saying the Warriors need more offensive firepower, they need size, they need shooting, and Porter checks all those boxes. Perk jumped on this immediately, talking about how Porter is an elite shooter with about 40% from three over his career, and he's averaging 25.8 points per game this season. His ability to space the floor and create his own shot would add a significant offensive threat that the Warriors desperately need beyond just Curry and Butler. When defenses load up on Steph, you need other guys who can punish them, and Porter is exactly that kind of player. RC brought up the size and rebounding component, noting that at 6'10", Porter would bring legitimate size to a Warriors team that sometimes gets bullied in the paint. His 7.4 rebounds per game this season would help address rebounding deficiencies that have plagued Golden State all year. In playoff basketball, when possessions are precious and every rebound matters, having another big body who can contribute on the glass is huge. Courtney made this really insightful point about Porter's championship experience. He won a title with Denver in 2023, so he knows what it takes to win in the playoffs, he's hit big shots, and he has that championship pedigree. For a Warriors team trying to recapture glory and get one more before the window closes, adding a player who's already been there and done that is invaluable. But then, Stephen A. had to address the elephant in the room, Porter's defensive limitations. He was asking the panel whether it makes sense to add a player who's known as a defensive liability to a team that's already struggling on that end at times. Can you really win a championship with Porter as one of your core pieces if he's getting targeted in pick and rolls and hunted by opposing offenses? Monica had a thoughtful response to this. She talked about how in the modern NBA, you can hide one or even two defensive weaknesses if you have enough good defenders around them. The Warriors have Draymond Green, who's still an elite defender when engaged. They have Andrew Wiggins, who can guard multiple positions, and they play in a system that emphasizes help defense and rotation. With that infrastructure, you can afford to have Porter on the floor because his offensive production would more than make up for his defensive shortcoming. But Perk pushed back on that, saying that in the playoffs, teams will absolutely target your weak links. If Porter is getting hunted possession after possession, at some point Steve Kerr might have to pull him in crunch time, which limits his value. Perk was asking whether it's worth giving up assets for a player who might not close games in the most important moments. RC came back strong defending the Porter idea. He was saying that the Warriors' current roster is good, but not championship-level good. They're a second-tier team in the West right now, and adding Porter's scoring could elevate them back into that elite tier where they can legitimately compete with OKC, Denver, and whoever comes out of the East. Yes, Porter has defensive issues, but his offensive upside, the shooting, the scoring, the size, is so significant that it's worth the trade-off. Courtney brought up the fit question, asking how Porter would mesh with Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler offensively. Would there be enough shots to go around? Would his style of play complement what they're already doing? And this led to a really interesting discussion about offensive system and ball movement. Monica made this great observation about how Porter's game, his movement without the ball, his cutting ability, his willingness to spot up in the corners, is actually very similar to what Klay Thompson used to do in his prime. He's not just a guy who needs the ball in his hands to be effective. He can thrive in the Warriors' motion offense, running off screens, catching and shooting, and making quick decisions. That kind of player is exactly what Golden State's system is designed to maximize. Stephen A. agreed and took it a step further, saying that Porter would actually take pressure off Curry in a way the Warriors haven't had since Klay's prime years. When you have two elite shooters on the floor at the same time, defenses can't just load up on one guy. They have to respect both threats, which creates more space for everyone. Porter's shooting gravity would open up driving lanes for Jimmy Butler, would give Curry more room to operate, and would make the entire offense more dynamic. Perk brought up the Jonathan Kuminga situation as a potential piece in a trade package for Porter. Kuminga has been incredibly frustrated with the organization, getting DNPs, and his stats have fallen off a cliff lately. Maybe Denver would be interested in a young, athletic wing with upside in exchange for Porter, especially if they're looking to get younger or get under the luxury tax. The money might work out, and it addresses needs for both teams. RC made this point about urgency and championship windows that really resonated. He was saying that Steph Curry is 37 years old, and while he's still playing at an elite level, Father Time is undefeated. Every season that passes is potentially one fewer opportunity to win another championship. The Warriors can't afford to just wait and hope Kuminga develops into a star or hope their young players figure it out. They need to win now, and that means being aggressive in pursuing proven talent like Michael Porter Jr. Courtney brought up the age of the roster, noting that the Warriors are still one of the oldest teams in the NBA. But she made this interesting argument that being old actually works for you in the playoffs. You have veteran experience, you've been in big moments, you know how to handle pressure. If the Warriors can just stay healthy through the regular season and secure a 5 or 6 seed, they'd be dangerous in a playoff series because of that experience and savvy. Monica agreed and started going through the Warriors' remaining schedule to show how they could build momentum. They have games against the Raptors, Nets, and Hornets coming up. Those should all be wins. Then they face the Thunder, which would be a huge statement game to start 2026. After that, it's Jazz, Clippers, and Bucks. 3 very winnable games. If the Warriors can go 6-1 or even 5-2 in that stretch, suddenly they're 6 games over 500 and climbing up the standings. Stephen A. made this observation about how the Western Conference is absolutely stacked this year. The Warriors are 16-15, and to get to the 5 or 6 seed, they'd need to be something like 18-10 down the stretch. To get to the 3 seed, you can only have 8 losses on the entire season, which shows how good the top of the West is. But the Warriors have beaten the Spurs twice, beaten the Nuggets, beaten the Lakers. They've shown they can compete with anyone on a given night. And this is where the panel really started connecting all the dots between Kerr's fading dynasty comments, the Warriors' championship potential, and the Michael Porter Jr. trade possibility. Perk was saying that he's legitimately confident this team could have won the championship last season if Steph doesn't get hurt. They beat the Rockets in 7 games in the first round. absolutely dominated the Timberwolves in Game 1 of the second round before Steph went down. Who knows what happens if he stays healthy? Perk said he likes their chances against anyone when Steph is on the floor and playing at that level. RC brought up Brandon Podziemski's recent performance as evidence that the young guys are starting to contribute. Pods has been shooting 53.6% from the floor and 45% from three over his last 6 games, averaging 13 points and 4 rebounds. That's exactly the kind of secondary scoring the Warriors need. And if you add Michael Porter Jr. to that mix, suddenly you have multiple offensive threats that defenses have to account for. Monica talked about the Christmas Day performances to show the current roster's capabilities. Wiggins returned and looked excellent. Podziemski had 13 points and 8 rebounds. Jimmy Butler almost had a triple-double with 14 to 9 to 9, and Steph had 23 points. Those are the kind of balanced contributions you need to win in the playoffs, and adding Porter would just make that depth even stronger. But Courtney kept coming back to the defensive concerns with Porter. She was asking whether the Warriors can really afford to add another defensive liability when they're already not great on that end. Draymond is 34 years old, and while he still has moments of brilliance, he's not the Defensive Player of the Year candidate he used to be. Can you hide both Curry and Porter defensively in playoff situations against elite offenses? Stephen A. had a great response to this. He said that championship teams aren't perfect. They all have flaws and weaknesses. The key is maximizing your strengths while minimizing your weaknesses. The Warriors' strength is offense. It's shooting, it's ball movement, and spacing. Adding Porter doubles down on that strength and makes them nearly unstoppable offensively. If you can outscore teams in the playoffs because you have Curry, Butler, and Porter all dropping 20-25 points per game, it doesn't matter as much if you give up some points on the other end. Perk brought up Draymond's recent comments about being willing to come off the bench if that's what the team needs. Steve Kerr said that's not even a consideration right now, but Perk loved that Draymond is thinking that way. 2 years ago, Draymond would have said, "No, I'm a starting power forward. This is who I am." But now everyone is saying they'll make any sacrifice necessary to win another championship. That's the mindset championship teams have. Monica connected this back to the Porter discussion, saying that if Draymond is willing to come off the bench to help the team, maybe Porter would be willing to accept a role that's not being the #1 option. In Denver, Porter has always been the 3rd or 4th scoring option behind Jokic and Murray. Coming to Golden State, he'd be in a similar situation behind Curry and Butler, but with way more spacing and better ball movement. That could actually unlock a higher level of performance from him. RC made this observation about how Jonathan Kuminga's frustration and declining performance makes a trade involving him more likely. Kuminga is clearly not happy with his role. His stats have fallen off, and the organization seems ready to move on. If you can flip Kuminga plus some salary filler and maybe a pick for Michael Porter Jr., that's a trade that makes sense for everyone. Denver gets younger and more athletic. Golden State gets a proven scorer who fits their system better. Courtney wrapped up this part of the discussion by talking about DeAnthony Melton's struggles shooting the ball. He's been abysmal from 3 in his Warriors tenure, but he's still been aggressive and giving them another attacking option. She was making the point that even with current roster flaws, the Warriors are finding ways to win, and adding someone like Porter, who doesn't have those shooting struggles, would make them that much more dangerous. What really stuck with me about this entire First Take segment was how the panel took Steve Kerr's fading dynasty quote, and instead of just debating whether he was right or wrong, they used it as a launching pad to discuss the Warriors' championship window, roster construction needs, and specific trade targets. The Michael Porter Jr. discussion grew organically from talking about what the Warriors need to compete for another title before Curry's career winds down. The case they made for Porter is actually really compelling when you think about it. Elite shooting that would space the floor for Curry and Butler, legitimate size, and rebounding that addresses a weakness, championship experience from winning with Denver, and an offensive game that fits perfectly in the Warriors' system. Yes, there are defensive concerns and you'd have to give up assets like Kuminga, But if you're serious about winning one more championship with Steph Curry, this is the kind of move you make. So what do you guys think? Should the Warriors be aggressive in pursuing Michael Porter Jr. from Denver? Or are the defensive liabilities too risky for a team that's already struggling on that end? And what would you be willing to give up? Is Jonathan Kuminga plus picks enough? Or would you need to include other pieces? Let me know in the comments, because after watching First Take break down the Warriors' situation from every angle, I'm pretty convinced they need to make a big move at the deadline, and Michael Porter Jr. might be exactly the high upside bet they should take to maximize whatever time they have left with Steph Curry playing at this level.